The three alien princes, Erix, Thalen, and Vorin, were supposed to be enjoying a quiet morning inside the Crystal Observatory, a tall glass tower that looked over the shining moons of Raylavar. But nothing felt calm today. A strange signal had entered their star borders, moving fast, sharp, and completely silent. Most ships made noise on scanners. Most ships sent warnings. Most ships traveled on known routes. This one did none of that. The palace guards rushed around the observatory, adjusting equipment and whispering among themselves. The princes stood in the center of the room, watching the hologram of a tiny moving light. It traveled through asteroid fields as if the rocks were soft clouds instead of deadly stone. Even the best Raylovarian pilots would avoid that path. Erix, the eldest prince, frowned deeply. "It is too small to be a warship," he said. "Maybe a scavenger?" Thalen shook his head. "Scavengers don't move like that. Look at the pattern. It's not random. It's choosing the fastest path every time." Vorin, the youngest, felt a twist in his stomach. He didn't like this at all. "If it enters the defense ring, Father will want us there," he muttered. As if on command, the royal advisor stepped into the observatory and bowed quickly. "Your Highnesses, the king requests your presence at the border platform. The unidentified vessel has signaled for landing permission." The princes exchanged uneasy glances. No one signaled so boldly unless they had confidence or ignorance. The journey to the border platform took only minutes, but every second felt heavy. The platform floated above the frozen plains, surrounded by tall guard towers. Soldiers lined up in formation, their armor shining under the twin suns. The air smelled like metal and frost. Everyone waited silently as the strange ship descended from the sky. It looked nothing like the princes expected. It wasn't large or frightening. It didn't carry heavy weapons. It was small, almost delicate, shaped like a compact arrowhead. But the surface of the ship looked strong, too strong for something so small. And the engines made no sound when it landed. "Silent tech engines," Thalen whispered. "That's rare. Very rare." Before the princes could study the ship further, the hatch opened with a soft hiss. A figure stepped out. A human. A lone woman in a sleek dark suit with silver lines running down the sides. Her helmet retracted smoothly, revealing short brown hair, sharp eyes, and a calm expression that didn't match the group of heavily armed soldiers watching her. She didn't look scared. She didn't even look nervous. She looked prepared. The princes had read about humans years ago. Records described them as unpredictable and too brave for their own good. But very few humans came this far into the galaxy. It had been decades since Raylavar saw one. The woman looked at the princes, then at the guards. Finally, she spoke in a steady voice. "I am Lieutenant Mara Holt of the United Human Fleet. I request temporary entry for survey purposes." Her tone was polite but confident, firm but not aggressive. She stood alone, yet she didn't act like someone surrounded by 100 soldiers. Erix stepped forward. As the eldest prince, he carried himself with noble authority. "A human scout? This far from your borders?" "Survey missions go where they must," Mara replied simply. Her lack of fear made the guards tighten their grip on their weapons. It made the prince's instincts spike with caution. She stood in the middle of a foreign kingdom with the same ease someone might stand in their own home. Thalen studied her closely. "You crossed the Blackstone asteroid field," he said, unable to hide his curiosity. "No species crosses that alone." Mara tilted her head slightly, as if she didn't understand why that was surprising. It was the shortest route. "Mara." A few guards exchanged looks, murmuring nervously. To them, her answer sounded like madness. To Mara, it was simple logic. Erix cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the conversation. "You understand that entering Raylavar space without proper identification can be considered a threat?" Mara met his gaze without hesitation. If I intended harm, Prince Eric's, this would not be the size of my ship. Vorin felt a chill crawl up his spine. She knew their names, she knew their positions, and she carried herself like someone who understood more than she spoke. Eric's tried to test her confidence. Why should we allow you into our territory? Because this is a survey, she said calmly. Nothing more. Thalen frowned. You keep saying that word. Survey. What exactly are you looking for? Data, Mara answered. Routes, minerals, energy readings. Anything that helps us understand this sector better. Vorin found her strange. She spoke simply, but her eyes were sharp, always watching, always studying. She wasn't careless, she was calculating. The princes were guided to the palace chamber for formal questioning. Mara walked between guards, her steps even, her posture straight, as if nothing here threatened her. Inside the questioning hall, hundreds of sensors and screens surrounded her. Every movement she made was recorded. Eric's began the questioning. How long have humans been exploring this region? Long enough, she answered. What is the purpose of your mission? Thalen asked. To gather information. What kind of information? Vorin added. Information that is relevant to humanity's long-term goals. Her answers were short but never rude, calm but never weak. She did not reveal too much, yet she didn't lie. She held the perfect balance. The advisors leaned around the princes, whispering warnings. Some believed she was hiding dangerous secrets. Others believed she was only a messenger. None could agree, and the uncertainty made the princes more restless. Eric's decided to test her patience. Your ship scanned our fleet when you arrived. That is considered a violation. Mara didn't flinch. That was a basic safety scan. If I intended to scan your fleet for strategic purposes, your sensors would not have noticed. Silence fell over the room. Thalen's heartbeat quickened. That statement had layers, dangerous layers. She said it casually, without pride. That made it even more unsettling. Vorin swallowed. So your basic scan can analyze our shield frequency? Yes. And your advanced scan? Eric's asked slowly. I didn't use it, Mara replied. None of the princes spoke for several seconds. The room felt colder than before. Everyone now understood why she stood so calmly in front of hundreds of armed guards. It was because she had no reason to be afraid. Later, she was escorted outside to inspect her ship. The princes followed, still trying to understand what kind of human she was. Mara worked on the ship as though she were in her own garage, repairing panels, adjusting controls, and running diagnostics. She lifted a heavy metal crate with ease, making even the soldiers stare. Her endurance didn't match her size. Her precision didn't match the simplicity of her equipment. Everything about her felt advanced, but quietly advanced. Thalen whispered to Eric's. She is not showing off. This is just normal for her. Eric's nodded slowly. That is what worries me. Suddenly, alarms echoed across the border towers. A fleet of pirates had entered the outer moons, attacking passing trade ships. Normally, Raylovar sent 3 teams to handle such threats. Before the princes could give orders, Mara closed the panel on her ship, sealed the hatch, and powered the engines. What are you doing? Eric shouted. Stopping the pirates, she answered. You don't have permission, Thalen insisted. I don't need permission to stop a threat, she replied. Her ship launched with a smooth burst of speed, disappearing into the sky before they could argue further. The princes rushed to the command room, eyes glued to the live feed. Mara's tiny scout ship darted through space, faster than anything they had seen. She flew in sharp curves, disabling pirate ships one by one. Not destroying them, disabling them. Every shot was precise, clean, controlled. Thalen whispered in disbelief. She's doing this alone. Eric's felt his throat tighten. If this is a human scout, he murmured, what does a human warship look like? Vorin didn't answer. He couldn't. His hands trembled as he watched the small human ship move like lightning, faster than any Relevarian fighter. The pirates surrendered within minutes. Mara returned to the platform, landing softly as if she had just taken a short evening flight. She stepped out calmly, her face unchanged, her suit barely scratched. Eric's approached her slowly. You took down an entire pirate unit. Alone. It was necessary, she replied. Thalen shook his head. No scout can fly like that. Mara looked at them with quiet seriousness. Then, perhaps your records on humans are old. The princes exchanged a long, silent look. For the first time in their lives, they felt something unfamiliar, fear mixed with curiosity. Vorin finally asked, in a small voice, if you are just a scout, what is humanity preparing for? Mara didn't answer, and that silence frightened them more than anything she had said. The palace felt different after Mara Holt's return from the pirate battle. The air inside the halls carried a new tension, like a silent storm waiting behind thick glass. Soldiers tried to stay calm, but every whisper held the same question. How did a single human do what even a squadron of elite Relevar fighters struggled to achieve? The three princes, Erix, Thalen, and Vorin, walked through the grand corridors toward the council chamber. The floor beneath them glowed with soft blue light, but today none of them admired the beauty. Their minds were full of the same image, a tiny human scout ship outmaneuvering a fleet, like it was a dance. All this time, Thalen muttered, we believed humans were normal. Erix kept his eyes forward. That belief was clearly wrong. Vorin looked at his hands, noticing they were still shaking even hours after watching the battle. But how wrong? That is what I want to know. Inside the council chamber, the royal advisors, generals, and scientists had gathered around a large hologram table. Mara's flight path, scans, and battle footage floated in the air above them. It had been replayed at least 50 times already. The king sat at the head of the table. His expression was calm, but the princes knew better than to trust that calmness. His mind was sharp, always thinking, always calculating. When the princes entered, he gave a small nod. Sit. We must discuss the human. Mara stood at the far end of the room, near a corner. She didn't speak unless she was asked. She didn't look worried or proud. She waited quietly, arms behind her back, as though she belonged there. The lead counselor cleared his throat. Lieutenant Holt, your ship's performance today was unusual. No human ship has ever been recorded doing such maneuvers. Mara replied with her usual calm tone. New training methods, new technology. Things evolve. Evolve, one of the generals repeated. In a few decades? Humans adapt faster than most species, Mara said simply. Her voice was light, but her words settled heavy in the room. The king focused his gaze on her. Your ship displays technology we have not seen in human records. Did you come here to show power? No, Mara answered. I came here to observe. Observe us? Thalen asked. Observe the sector. That answer made everyone lean slightly forward. The word sector meant she wasn't studying just Relevar. She was studying everything around them. Erix decided to be direct. Lieutenant Holt, what level of technology does your fleet currently hold? She paused for a brief second. Classified. The advisors exchanged worried looks. Everything she refused to answer became more concerning than what she actually said. The king continued. How strong is your fleet compared to ours? Mara didn't blink. This is a survey mission. Strength comparison is irrelevant. Not to us, Erix said. You moved through our borders without difficulty. You disabled pirates faster than our soldiers could react. You flew through the Blackstone field, as if it was empty space. That was necessary, Mara replied. Necessary, Thalen repeated under his breath. She was calm. Always calm. That calmness felt more dangerous than anger would have been. The scientists began showing data from her ship. The scout vessel uses a new form of energy core. Highly compact. Highly efficient. And the shield? Another scientist added. Her shield absorbed a direct particle blast in less than 1 second. Mara didn't turn her head. Standard human upgrades. Vorin stared at her. Standard? For who? For scouts? For soldiers? For entire fleets? Mara's silence was louder than any answer. The king stood. His tall frame cast a long shadow across the hologram table. Lieutenant Holt, I will speak plainly. Your presence raises questions the galaxy has not asked in many years. Humans do not travel this far, unless something important is happening. Mara didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it either. Instead, she said quietly, humanity is preparing for the future. Erix leaned forward. What kind of future? Mara looked at him for the first time with eyes that seemed older than her face, eyes that had seen more than she could say. A future that requires strength. A future that requires survivors. The room went completely silent. No one wanted to ask the next question, but Thalen forced himself to do it. Survivors of what? Mara hesitated. Just for a moment. Long enough to show that the answer mattered. But she only replied, You will know when the time comes. The council ended without any clear conclusion. The king gave Mara temporary permission to remain inside the kingdom while they investigated her arrival further. Guards followed her everywhere she went. But she never acted like a prisoner. She studied the architecture, the machines, the ships, and even the frozen plains outside the palace. She was learning. But she was also being watched. Later that day, Thalen found Mara alone in one of the repair hangars. She was scanning a piece of broken Raylovarian metal, lifting it gently and rotating it under a small portable device. The device hummed softly, analyzing its structure. Thalen approached her. You are scanning our technology? Yes, she said, without hiding it. And you expect us to be fine with that? She glanced at him. You let me walk here. You let me carry this device. If you didn't want me to scan it, you wouldn't have allowed this. Thalen opened his mouth, then closed it. She was right. Somehow, she had moved through their home with an ease that didn't match her outsider status. Why are humans advancing so fast? He asked finally. Why now? What changed? Mara placed the metal piece back carefully. Danger changed. Thalen felt his skin prickle. Danger from where? Not from you, she assured him. Not from Relovar. But the galaxy is large, Prince Thalen. Larger than any of us understand. Threats grow in places we do not see. Her voice wasn't dramatic. It was simple, factual, almost gentle. That made it even more unsettling. Thalen stepped closer. Are humans preparing for war? No, Mara answered softly. Humans are preparing for survival. That answer stayed in Thalen's mind long after she walked away. Meanwhile, Erix met with the military commanders. They demanded stronger border shields, more patrols, and new protocols. Everyone wanted to protect the kingdom, but protect it from what? From humans? From something else? No one knew. The youngest prince, Vorin, found himself unable to sleep that night. He kept replaying Mara's words and movements. She had fought pirates with perfect precision. She had walked into their palace without fear. She had spoken like someone who knew things others did not. Vorin left his room and headed to the viewing deck. The night sky above Raylovar was filled with glowing stars and drifting mist. He found Mara standing there alone. Looking up, he approached slowly. You don't sleep much, do you? She turned slightly. Not tonight. The stars look different today, Vorin said. They always look different when we learn something new, Mara replied. Vorin took a breath. Why did you not destroy the pirates? Most soldiers would have. Because destruction wasn't required, Mara answered. That is a very human answer, Vorin said. Mara looked at him with a faint smile. Humans fight only when forced. Vorin looked down at his hands again. But you fight well. Too well. Mara's expression softened. Prince Vorin, humans learned to be strong because we needed to be. Our history shaped us. Our losses shaped us. We fight hard because we have survived hard times. Are more hard times coming? Vorin asked quietly. Mara didn't give a direct answer. Instead, she looked back at the stars. Every species prepares in its own way. Humans prepare by improving ourselves. Vorin stepped beside her, staring at the same stars. When you say survival, you speak like something big is coming. Mara didn't deny it. The galaxy is changing. Borders shift. Empires rise and fall. Some stars die. Some stars are killed. Killed? Vorin whispered. Not by humans, she said quickly, but by forces older than any of us. Vorin shivered. He wasn't sure whether it was the cold or her words. Mara added softly, when humans send scouts, it means we want to understand before danger arrives. Vorin stared at her. Are we in danger? You are in the galaxy, Mara replied. So yes, someday. Her answer wasn't meant to frighten him. It was honest. And that honesty felt heavier than any threat. The next day, a diplomatic event was arranged. The advisors believed showing strength would help control the situation. They wanted to test the human's reaction to see how she behaved under pressure. They invited Mara to a demonstration of Raylovar's elite forces. Thousands of soldiers marched. Ships flew overhead, and weapon systems were displayed with pride. It was meant to show power, but Mara stood calmly, watching politely, as though none of it impressed or frightened her. Then, suddenly, an unauthorized energy weapon fired from a hidden tower triggered by a rogue faction inside the kingdom. A beam of white-hot energy shot toward the crowd. Before the princes could react, Mara stepped forward. A pulse of blue light erupted from her suit, forming a protective shield dome. The attack hit it and dissolved instantly, leaving the princes untouched. Gasps echoed across the field. Mara lowered the shield, as if it was nothing. She looked at the princes. Please do not test humans with hidden weapons. We do not respond well to that. The princes stared at her with wide eyes. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't threatened anyone. She had simply stated the truth. And the truth was powerful enough to silence a kingdom. The princes now understood something they had never expected. Humans were not dangerous because they wanted dominance. Humans were dangerous because they had learned how to survive anything. That realization filled their hearts with fear and awe. The attack during the demonstration changed everything inside the Raylovar kingdom. The princes did not speak of it in public, but each one replayed the moment in their minds over and over. The energy beam had been powerful enough to destroy half the plaza. Yet Mara Holt had stopped it with a single shield pulse from her suit, something so small, quiet, and controlled that it looked like everyday technology to her. For the Relovarians, it looked like impossible power. The king ordered an immediate investigation into the rogue tower. But the event created a new kind of fear. It was not fear of the attackers. It was fear of what would have happened if Mara had not been there. The princes gathered in the upper library that evening, a private space shaped like a dome of silver glass. Stars shone above them, and the room hummed with soft lights. Eric sat on a long bench, tapping his fingers restlessly. Thalen paced in slow circles. Vorin leaned against a shelf, lost in thought. Eric's finally broke the silence. We must accept what we have seen. Humans are far stronger than our records show. Thalen stopped pacing. Stronger, yes. But how strong? And why? Something pushed them to reach this level. Vorin lowered his head. Mara said, "They prepare for survival, not war." Eric's looked directly at him. None of them had an answer. Minutes later, a soft tone echoed through the library. The door slid open. Mara stepped inside. She had been summoned by the king, but she found the princes alone, waiting for her. Her eyes moved from one prince to the next, studying their expressions carefully. Thalen spoke first. "We need to understand what happened today. You saved us. You saved thousands of people. But you also showed us something our kingdom has never seen before." Mara stood calmly. "I did what was necessary." Eric stood. "But that shield, that technology, that reaction. Humans were never known for such abilities." Mara walked slowly toward the center of the room. "Records become outdated when species grow. Humanity did not stop growing." Vorin stepped closer, his voice soft. "Then tell us, what made humans grow so fast?" Mara hesitated. The princes held their breath. For the first time, she looked unsure. Or maybe she simply wasn't allowed to speak the full truth. She lifted her eyes. "We learned from loss." Her voice did not tremble, but the words carried weight. Eric's crossed his arms. "What loss?" Mara took a quiet breath. "Long ago, humanity faced a chain of disasters. Some from our own mistakes, some from hostile species, some from unknown threats that appeared and vanished. Every time, humans survived, but surviving changed us." Thalen swallowed. "Changed? How?" "We became inventive," Mara said. "We became united. Humans started building things, not because we wanted to conquer, but because we wanted to live long enough to see tomorrow." She didn't speak like a soldier boasting about her army. She spoke like someone remembering heavy memories. Vorin asked in a small voice, "Are those threats still out there?" Mara lowered her gaze. "Some are gone. But the galaxy is not peaceful, not truly." The princes stood quietly, absorbing each word. It felt as though a hidden door had opened, revealing a darker path behind it. Eric's exhaled slowly. "So, that is why your fleet advanced so quickly." "Yes," Mara said. Thalen stepped closer. "And your battle cruisers? Are they real?" Mara did not deny it. "They exist." Eric's pressed on. "Then why send a scout alone? Why not send a diplomatic ship?" "A larger one?" Mara met his eyes. "Because humans do not want to cause fear." The irony of her words filled the room. The princes exchanged looks. A single human scout had already caused more fear than an entire alien armada. Thalen asked quietly, "Do humans fear being known?" Mara considered the question. "Humans fear being misunderstood. We fear causing panic. And we fear bringing danger to others." Her last words held a deeper meaning, one the princes could not ignore. Later that night, Mara was escorted to temporary quarters inside the palace. She walked through the silent halls, feeling the weight of every observing eye. Guards watched her carefully, their hands near their weapons, but she didn't see hostility. She saw confusion, uncertainty, curiosity, and fear all mixed together. Inside her room, she sat on the edge of the bed and removed her gloves. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Saving lives, protecting herself, navigating political tension, it all pulled at her mind. But she had to stay calm. She had a mission. A soft knock on her door caught her attention. "Come in," she said. The door slid open. Vorin stepped inside, holding a small metal container. "I brought you something. It helps with rest. Relovarian calming mist." I. She studied him with calm curiosity. Thank you, Prince Vorin. He walked closer, placing the container on the table. I have questions, but I don't want to ask them in front of the others. Mara nodded. Ask. Vorin took a deep breath. Are humans dangerous? Mara answered immediately. Only when attacked. Vorin looked down. But you. Today. You saved us. Without hesitation. Mara's voice grew gentle. Because that is what humans do when people are in danger. Vorin felt relief wash through him. Not because she promised peace, but because she sounded sincere. But before he could respond, a loud alarm filled the palace. Red lights flashed across the walls. Vorin's face went pale. That's a border alarm. Mara stood instantly. Show me. Vorin opened a hologram window with a flick of his wrist. The image showed unknown ships approaching Relovar's outer moons. They weren't pirates this time. They weren't traders. They were large, dark vessels with no known identification markers, silent, coordinated, and fast. Erix and Thalen appeared in the hologram, both rushing toward the command center. Erix shouted, Unidentified fleet approaching high speed. Thalen added, They are not responding to hails. Mara's expression hardened. She walked past Vorin and headed toward the door. Vorin grabbed her arm lightly. What is it? No, she said, but I know the pattern. What pattern? A species that doesn't talk before firing. Vorin's breath caught in his throat. You mean? Yes, Mara said calmly. This is the type of danger humans prepare for. The princes gathered inside the command center as the unknown fleet moved closer. Mara stood beside them, eyes focused, body still as stone. The king turned to her. Lieutenant Holt, what would humans do in this situation? Mara answered without hesitation. Establish a defensive position. Do not attack first. Wait for their move. Prepare for any outcome. Erix frowned. And you believe they will attack? Mara didn't blink. Their approach says everything. The unknown ships slowed near the moon's orbit. Silence filled the command center. Generals held their breath. Scientists froze their movements. The princes stared at the screen. Then, one of the unknown ships powered a weapon, bright and growing. Shields up, Erix ordered. The Relovarian shields activated, glowing like a blue dome. The energy blast hit the shield and scattered like dust. But the attack had begun. Mara stepped forward. You must evacuate civilians from the outer moons. Now. Thalen nodded and sent the evacuation command. Vorin swallowed hard. Why are they here? Mara spoke quietly. Because the galaxy is changing. Because some forces want to test new borders. Because some threats rise quietly. Erix clenched his jaw. We can't defeat a fleet like this. Mara placed her hand on the console. Thalen looked at her. Then what do we do? Mara lifted her eyes. Hold them long enough. Erix frowned. Long enough for what? Mara's voice became calm. Firm. Unshakable. Long enough for the human ship watching this system to step in. The princes froze. Thalen whispered. There is a human ship here. Mara nodded slowly. Yes, and you will see it very soon. At that moment, a massive dark shape uncloaked above the battlefield. A human battlecruiser. Silent and enormous. Dwarfing every ship around it. The princes stared in shock. Mara breathed out softly. And that is why humans send scouts. The massive human battlecruiser hovered silently above the Relovarian moons, its dark metal surface reflecting the pale light of the twin suns. Its presence alone made the air in the command center feel heavy. Every soldier, advisor, and even the princes froze as they stared at the enormous ship. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, larger than their entire fleet. Silent, yet radiating a quiet power that no one could ignore. Eric's could hardly believe it. That is a human ship? He whispered, his voice barely audible over the alarm systems. All this? Just for one scout? Mara Holt stood beside the princes, calm as always. Not just for the scout, she said softly. The scout is only a messenger. The fleet ensures safety. Vorin stepped closer to the console, his hands trembling slightly. But it dwarfs our ships. It could destroy the entire kingdom if it wanted. Mara shook her head. It would never. Humans do not destroy without reason. That is not our way. Number way. Class country. And everyone tongue whether subscribe. To stay. Thalen stared at the colossal vessel with wide eyes. Then why stay hidden? Why only reveal now? Mara's gaze moved to the screen. Because humans do not seek fear or domination. Our presence is a warning, a shield, and a promise. We show strength only when necessary. The unknown fleet that had approached the moon slowed, hovering cautiously near the Raylovarian defensive line. Every ship in the alien fleet now paused, unsure of what to do next. They had expected an easy victory, a test of Raylovar's defenses. But this was not something they could calculate. The king leaned forward, his hands resting heavily on the console. Lieutenant Holt, your human fleet is powerful, beyond what our records imagined. Are we in danger? Mara's calm voice carried through the room. You are not in immediate danger. The human fleet is not here to attack. We are here to observe and protect. But you must prepare. Other threats will come, and not all can be stopped as easily. Eric's ran his hands through his hair. Prepare? We are not ready for something like this. We've never seen anything like this before. Then learn quickly, Mara said, her tone firm, yet not unkind. Understanding is the first step to survival. The alien advisors began sending commands, forming new defensive formations, and preparing for potential engagement. Mara watched quietly, occasionally giving instructions to adjust sensor arrays or shield configurations. Her knowledge was precise. Her understanding of galactic warfare, unmatched. Every decision she made displayed an experience that the Raylovarians could not comprehend. Vorin turned to her, his voice small. Do humans ever fail? Mara paused. Of course. Every species faces failures. Every mission carries risks. But humans survive because we adapt. Because we do not panic. Because we learn from every mistake. The unknown fleet moved closer, their intentions still unclear. Eric's clenched his fists. If they attack, we are finished. Our weapons cannot match that ship. Mara's expression remained calm. You do not need to fight alone. That is why humans are here. Observation is one step. Intervention, if needed, is another. Humans act only when absolutely necessary. Thalen's voice trembled. Then why send only a scout first? Why not reveal the fleet immediately? Mara looked at him thoughtfully. Because the scout observes. Humans learn before acting. We do not rush. We do not provoke. We wait until the time is right. And when the time is right, we act decisively. The unknown fleet sent a pulse of energy toward one of the outer moons. The Raylovarian defenses fired in response, but Mara signaled them to halt. Wait. Let the human fleet handle it. The massive human ship moved. Its engines flared silently, and a wave of energy swept through space, neutralizing the attacking fleet's weapons instantly. Not destroying them, merely disabling them. The unknown ships drifted without power, unable to move, unable to retaliate. A hush fell over the Raylovarians. Even the king was silent, staring at the display with wide eyes. It did not destroy them, he said. It just stopped them. Mara nodded. Humans do not destroy, unless there is no other option. Control and protection are often stronger than destruction. Vorin whispered to Thalen, All this power, and she was just a scout. Thalen nodded slowly. If this is a scout, what must a full human fleet be like? Erix could not answer. He simply stared, realizing that the species they had long underestimated was far beyond any prediction. Humans were not reckless. They were not fragile. They were survivors, thinkers, and warriors, honed by centuries of challenges they alone had faced. The unknown fleet, now powerless, began retreating slowly. The human battlecruiser remained above the moons, observing. Mara gave no commands. She simply watched. As if nothing extraordinary had occurred, the princes felt a mixture of relief and unease. The immediate danger was gone, but the lesson was clear. Humans were a force unlike any other in the galaxy. And this was only the beginning. The king finally spoke, his voice measured but heavy with concern. Lieutenant Holt, the presence of humans, your fleet, it changes everything. How do we ensure peace now? Mara turned to him. Peace comes from understanding, preparation, and respect. Humans do not seek conflict without reason. Learn from this encounter. Strength is not always visible. And never underestimate the small, quiet actions of those you consider harmless. Erix stepped forward. Lieutenant Holt, why show us this power? Why reveal the fleet now? Mara's gaze was calm, unwavering. Because the galaxy will not wait. Because knowledge is safer than ignorance. And because one scout alone cannot always protect the ones who are unprepared. Vorin swallowed hard. And if humans were not here? Mara's expression did not change. Then, you would have learned a hard lesson. Humans are here now. That is enough. The princes remained silent. Each one understood the truth. The galaxy was bigger, more dangerous, and more unpredictable than they had ever imagined. Humans were no longer a small, insignificant species. They were a rising power, quiet yet overwhelming, patient yet decisive. Hours passed. The unknown fleet disappeared from the moon's orbit entirely. Rehelovar's defenses were lowered slightly, but the memory of the battle and the presence of the human fleet remained. Every sensor, every soldier, every advisor had seen the same thing. A species capable of overwhelming power, yet wielded with restraint. Mara returned to the palace briefly, speaking with the king and his advisors, sharing limited information about her observations. She revealed only what was necessary, holding back the full extent of human capabilities. The princes watched her carefully, realizing that restraint was not weakness. It was intelligence. Later, Mara walked through the silent corridors of the palace with Vorin. The young prince had trouble sleeping, still thinking about the scale of what they had witnessed. Do humans ever hesitate? Vorin asked quietly. Mara smiled faintly. We hesitate when caution is required. We act decisively when action is necessary. That balance is what keeps us alive. Vorin nodded slowly, understanding. And you did everything perfectly today. Mara shook her head. I did what was required. That is all. Vorin remained quiet for a moment. You said humans do not destroy without reason. But your fleet, it could have ended the unknown ships. Mara's expression softened. Ending is not always necessary. Control is often stronger. Protection is always better than destruction when possible. The words settled heavily on Vorin's mind. Humans were strong, yes. But their strength was not in attack. It was in survival. In precision. In foresight. They were not reckless. They were careful, intelligent, and patient. That was more terrifying than any weapon. The next morning, Mara prepared to depart. She walked to her ship, checked the engines, and made final adjustments. The three princes followed her, standing silently on the platform, watching her every movement. The king joined them as well, observing the human scout who had changed their understanding of the galaxy. Mara looked at them one last time. This mission is complete. Humanity will continue to observe and protect. You have learned something today. Do not forget it. Eric stepped forward. Lieutenant Holt, will humans return? Mara nodded. Only if needed. And only when the time is right. Humans do not interfere without purpose. Vorin whispered. You saved us. All of us. Mara smiled faintly. I did what was necessary. That is all any scout can do. With that, Mara entered her ship. The engines hummed softly, and the ship lifted off with quiet grace. The Raylovarian soldiers watched in awe as it disappeared into the starry sky, leaving behind a silent promise of power, restraint, and the presence of a species that could no longer be underestimated. The princes remained on the platform, staring at the sky long after the ship vanished. Erix finally spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. We were afraid of her, and she was only one. Thalen nodded slowly. If that was only a scout, what does that mean for the future? How strong must humanity be? Vorin whispered, almost to himself. The galaxy has underestimated humans for too long. The king's voice carried softly across the platform. And now, we have learned. Humans are no longer a small species. They are a force to respect, to fear, if necessary, and to watch carefully. The three princes remained silent, each lost in thought. They had witnessed the future, and it had arrived in the form of a single human scout. The galaxy would never be the same again. And in that silence, one truth became clear.